Sometimes it takes actually watching on video and listening to audio of stuff like what you're about to see and hear to convince me, at least to remind me, that this type of thinking still exists in the world. Well, I can imagine in the world, but let's say in this country. Sometimes the type of people, I should say, that I surround myself with, and what I would say is the majority position, makes me naive to the fact that some people are so far back and so messed up in their way of thinking. And in this segment, we'll review Trump supporters specifically being asked about Vice President Harris, and some of them bringing up an issue they have, which is her gender. And I want to be clear, just if any MAGA folks are out there, I understand this isn't probably even the majority of your movement, hopefully, but definitely not the majority of the country. But there are people who still won't even consider Vice President Harris just because her gender or her race, which is a shocking thing to imagine. This CNN report was a reporter going into a Trump store and asking them about their thoughts. And then we'll look at a different, even more disturbing clip after that.
There were some mixed views on the idea of a woman president.
What do you think about Kamala Harris?
Kamala Harris, may I say this, and hopefully that you ladies won't get offended, but because of what happened in the Garden of Eden, there will never be an elected woman, whether she's black or white, that will occupy the White House that God would ever stand behind.
I'm not sure America's quite ready for female leadership. It would be wonderful to have a female president if and when one arises that has conservative values that are going to lead the nation in prosperity.
Did Joe Biden dropping out change your view of the election at all?
Oh, it surely did. I think she's going to be worse than Joe. I just don't think she has the experience. I think she was only chosen because she was a woman.
He has been mocked, scrutinized, slandered, dragged into court. This man is still standing, and he's standing strong because he knows that he was chosen. He's our David.
He's our David. Self-proclaimed godly people selling, as we've seen at Trump rallies. I'm going to read this verbatim. Quote, "Joe and the hoe gotta go," is what these stickers say. And the guy at the beginning saying because of Eve's decisions in the Garden of Eden, he doesn't believe God will ever back a female president. Yikes. I will say, I know there are different stances on this in MAGA. And again, I bet you most MAGA folks even don't believe that they believe that a woman couldn't be president. They might believe it somewhere deep down, but they don't believe that they believe it. Okay? But it shocks me to this day, even when I hear people say this at Trump rallies myself, that's even a thing. And also, please stop with this, I don't believe something, but I'm going to act a certain way because I think the majority believes it. For example, you'll hear people say, even Democrats, I'm worried about putting up a candidate of this identity or that identity because I don't know if America's ready. You heard in that video, America's ready for, in this case, a female president. Well, first of all, clearly the polling shift we've seen is revealing Americans are. But how about you trust Americans enough to just pick the person you think is best and hope that crazy biases against certain identity groups won't get in the way of the right person being selected? And then I really wish within MAGA this would be called out more, Because there are MAGA voices who wouldn't say that necessarily, but are saying it's the left who prioritizes identity over qualifications. That's their whole racist DEI attack. It's that Harris, and you heard this mentioned here, she's only being picked because she's a woman by the Democratic Party. She's not qualified, they'll say. What qualification does she have other than being a black woman, they'll say. Not realizing that if you compare her to presidential candidates of the past, she's one of the most qualified we've ever had. Prosecutor, district attorney, attorney general of the largest state in the entire country, senator from the largest state in the country, vice president. That's a pretty good resume. And still they levy that allegation, which is ridiculous. But they say the reason it's justified to say that is because they would never consider identity. They only consider qualifications, which again, still their argument's bogus because of her qualifications. But I wish they would turn to the people in their movement saying, oh, well, I would never consider a woman for president. And say, you're violating the principle we pretend like we have, which is that we shouldn't be making those sorts of decisions on identity. Every day we do a whole show that you can get access to if you're a member by clicking the join button below. And then if you're thinking, I don't want to go that far, but you want to support the work in a free way, you can do that by clicking the subscribe button. Thank you so much. Back to the video. And you might remember this guy from North Carolina who said this about Nikki Haley being president.
What do you think of Nikki Haley? Did you ever consider her?
You know, what I got to say, you don't really want to put it on.
Let me hear it.
Well, the woman's not going to be a good president. She's going to have no balls to scratch. She's just going to scratch her head. All the woman's good for in my book is having babies and taking care of the house. And that's the old thing, you know. But I'm old school.
So you never even considered her?
No.
Again, I know this is vulgar, but I need to quote it because he was sort of difficult to hear so that we can all be on the same page. This, can I say gentleman? No, this person, this man, says that he doesn't think you can be a good president if you don't have, quote, balls to scratch. Okay. So, I mean, what is there to be said about that? Here's what should be said. Presumably, that guy with that really deep analysis, complicated and thoughtful analysis, he presumably is going to go vote. If you decide, as has been pointed out by many, to not vote, you're just saying you want Mr. Balls to Scratch guy to have more of a say. You're giving his vote more weight if you decide not to. Or you could dilute that vote by getting a few friends to go vote. Try to balance the scale of rationality in the direction of rationality a little bit. Because while that's the consideration for some, others are listening to the vision that Vice President Harris is rolling out. Not to mention her qualifications. And today she spoke in Raleigh, North Carolina, to talk about her economic policy vision. And for the sake of time, we won't go through all the clips. We'll be talking more about this on the members only show. You can get access to that by clicking the join button below. But I will play a couple of clips to give you a sense of what she's talking about here.
So thank you all. So listen, this election, I do strongly believe, is about two very different visions for our nation. One, ours, focused on the future, and the other, focused on the past. We see that contrast clearly in many ways, including when it comes to how we think about the economy. So our country has come a long way since President Biden and I took office. At that time, we sadly remember the millions of Americans that were out of work. We were facing one of the worst economic crises in modern history. And today, by virtually every measure, our economy is the strongest in the world. We have created 16 million new jobs. We've made historic investments in infrastructure, in chips manufacturing, in clean energy. And new numbers this week alone show that inflation is down under 3%. And as President of the United States, it will be my intention to build on the foundation of this progress. Still.
And then what she goes into saying, you'll see here, I think this is chronologically correct, but it's a perfect message, which is, let's not discount, as we look ahead, let's not discount what has been achieved, but there's a lot to be done. And she mentions that here.
Still, we know that many Americans don't yet feel that progress in their daily lives. Costs are still too high. And on a deeper level, for too many people, no matter how much they work, it feels so hard to just be able to get ahead. As president, I will be laser focused on creating opportunities for the middle class that advance their economic security, stability, and dignity. Together, we will build what I call an opportunity economy. An opportunity economy. An economy where everyone can compete and have a real chance to succeed. Everyone, regardless of who they are or where they start, has an opportunity to build wealth for themselves and their children, and where we remove the barriers to opportunity so anyone who wants to start a business or advance their career can access the tools and the resources that are necessary to do so.
And then, like I said, there's much more. She walks through some of the specifics, and I'm sure we'll be rolling out more. But in terms of how you do that, all that sounds nice, but how you do that, and she did touch on it, some of it in this speech. But I don't even want to reflect too much on the beginning of the segment because it's just can really just ruin your day. But let me put it this way, put a positive spin on it. I do believe it's going to take work, but I do believe we are going to be victorious come November. And what that's going to say about our country is hopefully that more people have our priorities and engage with politics how we are than some of the people mentioned in this segment. And that's good, right? Don't think about the millions of people with the frightening analysis, but instead how many millions of more have more rational analysis. And interesting to see now that Harris has been the nominee for some time, her beginning the process of rolling out her economic vision. We'll talk much more about it in the coming days. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. If you want to support the work we do, as I mentioned previously, you can click the join button below. And if you want to donate to Harris's campaign, you can do that by clicking the link in the description of this video.